Hey, what is up guys, Guitar Rock here. Welcome to my awards for best gacha games of 2022, voted by you guys, the community of this channel. Now if you guys are not aware, I did a live stream earlier today where we have plenty of players come in and vote and try to decide which will be the best gacha games of 2022. Obviously, there are plenty of awards given out, for example, best graphics, best story, best combat, so those are going to be revealed at the end. But first, let me present to you the candidate for the best gacha games of 2022 so that we have a straightforward perspective of what to expect in the list. Now obviously, if you guys are not familiar with this, I've done this plenty of times before. This is a PowerPoint presentation that I did prepare earlier. Like I mentioned, I remember doing the same thing for 2021 and I did not do any votes for that particular one. I just straight up give my personal choice of the best gacha. And of course, players said, hey, that's a little bit unfair, isn't it? Because I think I remember giving Blue Archive the best gacha of 2021. Now that stirred a little bit of, unhappiness from some players. So I decided this year, maybe we try something different. So we're gonna do something that's much more community driven. Now here are the rules, pretty straightforward. Number one, the games listed here, they all have to be global only. So number two, gacha first. So that means the game has to be mainly a gacha game. So for example, like I'm not going to include games that's like racing game, but it has a little bit of gacha elements to it. I've also came up with a very distinct voting system to help distinguish what would be the best one. So basically, it's only 2 points, alright? So point one, if the game is, let's say, below average, 2 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. So players will get to vote 1. Now if the game is like high quality or they think this is above average, 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, then players will choose to vote 2. So obviously we are gathering the percentages at the end of each game. Alright, so disclaimer, again, the games will need to be in Google and Apple. So it must be a game that's easily accessible to a majority of players. Without further ado, let's talk about each individual gacha games presented right here. Starting off with Disney Twisted Wonderland. Now this is going to be a little bit different. Now I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with this particular game, but this was the first game that came out in January last year. I would say it's a very unique game. It's the first husbando only games, or whatever you want to call this, otome game, right? There's no waifu, all dudes. Alright, so the game is a mixture of a little bit of turn-based, there's chibi in it. The story is pretty good, it's voice acted as well, which I was very surprised, but considering that it's by Disney and Aniplex is the publisher, so I was kind of expecting along the lines of those as well. The combat system is pretty straightforward, it's turn-based, nothing spectacular, there's nothing particularly new that the game has brought to the genre specifically. Now, the next game on the list is going to be My Hero Ultra Impact. Now this one, again, unexpected as well, it came somewhere in February 2022. Very decent game, very high quality I would say, but one of the reasons why I dropped it is because of Bandai Namco. When the game first launched, obviously I made an account using an emulator. So obviously with Bandai account, there's no way for you to link it with the Google account whatsoever. So therefore, you have to make a Bandai account, which is very specific, and I think it was too finicky and it was locked to that particular one device. So if I want to play on my phone, it's a bit too much hassle and I don't think it's worth it. You have to send like a verification or something. So yeah, My Hero Ultra Impact, I think this is a decent game. It has very good quality of life, very similar to Blue Archive if you guys are familiar with the title, right? This game has a sweet functionality. You almost never have to play any stages other than the first time of you tackling it to try to get 3-star. Once you get 3-star, you're just going to be sweeping all days, and then it's all about powering up your characters, progressing through the story. I do enjoy the progression system of the game for sure. If I have a chance, I'll definitely get back and check this out for sure. Now next up is going to be 7 Mortal Sins Ecstasy. Now this game, I think prior to the release last year, it was already available somewhere, or I think you can download the non-censored version, right? So the game is also turn-based, right? But it has somewhat of a chibi. The game has a very cluttered user interface, but I do kind of like it. I think it's pretty good. Game quality, I would say, for me personally, I would say 6 out of 10. But it doesn't have the oomph that other higher quality, higher budget games have. Like for example, like a good story or like voice acting. It doesn't have those to back it up. It does have a solid foundation for a gacha game, but that's about it, you know. Now next one is going to be Soul Tide. Now this one came to me by surprise. Again, it's a very simple gacha game. There's nothing complicated. You have basically the dolls, which is what you can, the characters that you can try to gacha for, and there's a little bit of, I think, the cards that you can equip them with. The game is relatively simple. I kind of like it. I did play it for a couple of months, and it also has a very unique combat style where you can basically swap your skills for the character. So basically each character will have two distinct skills, and you can basically configure them how you want them to be. So it's not fixed that this character that you get will only have one particular skill. For example, one of the character I remember, you can either configure her skills to be a healer or to be a defender, something along those lines. So that's very, very cool. It has a very unique customization, but obviously the game is also slightly on the lower budget. You can tell from the aesthetics. There's nothing much. The art is about slightly above average, and that's about it. Now the result of this one surprises me. I'm going to reveal it later at the end. But Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, I'm pretty sure you guys, all of you guys watching the channel will have heard of this title before. This is one of the open world gacha game. It has a lot of flavor to it. It is by Netmarble though, so Netmarble has a little bit of reputation of, you know, not so good depending on which games you come from. But Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, I do think that the game, despite the NFT red flags or whatever, right, the quality is definitely there. It has very high production value, it has very good voice acting, it has good graphics as well, decent graphics. In my humble opinion, again, this is just a personal preference thing, I do like the graphics of Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds more than Tower of Fantasy. But yeah, this is something that's much more preference based. I do think that the game basically has a lot of bonuses or advantages to it, but obviously when it comes to NFT, people just don't like it, and it makes the game overall just look a little bit bad. The game is a little bit grindy because of that as well, so that's something that I don't know why they decided to go that route. That's rather unfortunate, but hey, Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, if they ever decide to change the format and change the monetization or the NFT stuff, whatever, I might consider going back to it. Now next up is going to be Dislight. I do think that Dislight is one of the highest quality turn-based gacha games that's released in 2022. Now this game, again, the art is not for everyone. The art style, it is a portrait game altogether. I understand that not everyone likes that, but the game definitely has very unique furry characters, if I would say so myself, right? So alongside with that, very unique art. The art style is definitely much more towards the Western style as opposed to the Japanese style, which I thought was very interesting despite the game being a CN based game. Now the story of this game leaves a little bit to be desired. It wasn't that complicated, it wasn't that complex, and also there's a lot of controversy surrounding the game as far as I can tell. Players are really not happy with the gacha system overall. And being a gacha game, if you have a gacha system that's like so not generous, I can't remember the PT, but at the beginning I think you need to pull 400 times to be able to get PT, hard PT, which is just insane. Alright, so that's just like, it's a turn off for lots of players, and also the game is not reroll friendly. Again, that's also something that a lot of players just despise straight up. But other than those flaws that I mentioned, I do think that this game has overall a lot of potential. I would love to come back to Dislight and check it out once I have time. But hey, Dislight is definitely one of the listed games of 2022, one of the recommendations for sure. Now next up is going to be Argent Twilight. Now this title is a little bit much more nuanced, and I think it's because it is region locked in a lot of countries. It is global, but I don't know why Nexon decided, hey, we're just gonna allow this in certain regions only, which I thought was kind of weird. If I'm not mistaken, when the beta test first came out, it was only available in 2 countries, which was very surprising. But despite all of that, the game, I do think, has a lot of promising features. Alright, so if you're looking for decent turn-based or grid-based, whatever you call that, that allows your character to move on the tile, alright, I do think that this game has it. The gacha, sure, there's like similar character but with different element, so that can be a turn off for some players. But I do think that from a player that used to play Fantasy War Tactics this can be a very good sequel. Some of the characters do have a little bit of resemblance from that as well. So if Nexon were willing to promote this game even more, I do think that this game has a chance to compete with all the higher quality titles in the list. Now, Echoes of Mana is going to be something that I think a lot of players, it's a very forgettable experience for most of us, right? So I did play this for at least 1 week. Being a fan of the Mana series, definitely very hype at the beginning, but then leaves a little bit to be desired. I guess it's just because some of these games, they just don't translate too well. Being a single player JRPG, and then when you try to translate them into a gacha game, it just falls apart. I feel like that's the best way that I can describe it. It has very good soundtrack if you are into that. Definitely the art style is definitely on point as well. It's just, for me, it felt very grindy overall in the structure of the game. I'm not sure if that's something that is just for me particularly, and I think it lacks quality of life. I can't really remember trying to recollect some of the memories that I have playing that game, but it's just very faint in my mind. Now, Artery Gear Fusion. Now, this is something that I think a lot of players were very happy initially. This game launched early half of 2022. It's definitely one of the more promising titles. Obviously, some players didn't like it because of its chibi style. I kind of feel that the management sort of ruined it. Everything was so rushed in Global. So it literally had collabs back to back, like 3 collabs back to back. Players couldn't save or couldn't have enough time to save. It is kind of a big struggle if you are a free-to-play player trying to survive in a PvP heavy base game. Yes, there is PvE, but I do think that at the end of the day, for Artery Gear, the focus is going to be PvP anyways. You are going to grind as much gears as you can and try to get your characters as strong as possible so that you can excel in PvP. But sadly, with all the rush and all the collab characters seems to be meta, if you miss out, it's going to be a big struggle for you for sure. Alice Fiction is a title that I think a lot of players might have missed out or might not have heard much of. I just wish they would do more promotion on their end, more advertising. Alice Fiction, I think, is a very well-deserved title to be known. It is very well known in the JP community for sure, but I think in the global community, it's a little bit lacking in terms of the advertising part. If I have to describe this game in basically one sentence, I would say this game is the most colorful game in 2022. Alright, so basically what do I mean? The combat style, the color, the bright colors is just very vibrant. Now if you are into that, of course, that's going to be a big plus for you. The combat system is a mixture of a little bit of turn-based and also a little bit of rhythm tapping, if you could call it. I'm not sure what's the correct definition, but the auto for the AI definitely tends to play better than most players, so that's also something that you have to keep in mind. Now I think the game has a lot of potential for sure. It's not just full waifus, it has a mixture of husbandos alongside with it as well, so I thought the game has a very unique spin to it. Now, Octopath Traveler Clash of the Champions. This is going to be a title that I think can also be forgettable. It didn't shine as much as its competition. It is a single player gacha game, similar to Another Eden. If you guys have heard of that title before, this game has that similar vibe. Now, a lot of players didn't even knew this existed, and a lot of players seems to be confused between Octopath Traveler and Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, which are both very different games, both separate games. One is like a gacha and one is the one that you can play on, I think it was available on Switch and on Steam as well. But this game does have a little bit of controversy surrounding it as well. I did cover it on my second channel, but despite all the flaws, I would say this is a highly recommended one if you're looking for a single player experience. Alright, so the game is pretty chill. That don't need for you to have a guild, like there's no friends, you just focus on the game itself, go for the story. It's very similar to Genshin if you like that kind of solo single player experience. Highly recommended, and also if you're into pixel art style as well. Grimlight is a very unique title. Now I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I wasn't expecting that many players to like this title. I thought it has very good art style, it has very good music, you know, everything was fine. Story was a bit lacking, but also at the beginning, the game was quite buggy. They decided to launch it earlier than it should. They should have tried to fix everything first and try to make sure that the game is in the proper state before releasing it, and that leads to a little bit of drama when the game first launched. Alright, and then the game was pushed back. It just switches from becoming official launch back into beta, something along those lines, which I find it quite weird. Why didn't they finalize it correctly? Maybe it's because the investors are pushing them to release the game as soon as they can. But I do think that this game does have potential if they are willing to fix the bugs, of course, and I would highly recommend you guys to check it out if you guys are into chibi games for sure. Now, CounterSide Global is something that, requires no introduction. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this game. This particular title, very high quality. There's a lot of things that you can love about CounterSide. Very complex story, very complex mechanics, a mixture of waifu and husbandos, good art style, and it's definitely one of the highest quality games that was released last year in 2022. So let's move on to Memento Mori. Now, this title is a little bit confusing. Some players just straight up hate it because it has almost zero gameplay. Now, I can totally understand that perspective, but you also have to look at a different angle, which is everything else. It has very high production quality in terms of the music, very good art style, very good L2D. Everything else is really top notch. Even the story is very well written. So is gameplay that important to you, right? So it's not that the gameplay is not there, it's just that it doesn't have a super active one. But to be fair, it is an idle game. I actually do enjoy playing it for the first couple of weeks for sure, and obviously if I have time I would love to check it out again. Memento Mori is something that you guys can consider if you guys are looking for something more chill and casual on the side kind of gacha game. Tower of Fantasy, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this title by now. Something that was supposed to be the killer of some sort, but unfortunately it was a little bit of a buggy mess at the beginning. Alright, it did massive advertising at the beginning. I saw it start sponsoring every single Twitch streamer on the horizon when the game first launched, which was insane. Very good marketing strategy right there to retain some of the player base from the other games, right? So I do think that this game has a lot of potential. If you're looking for an open world experience, and if you're looking for something that's released recently from 2022, look no further than Tower of Fantasy. The next game that's released after Tower of Fantasy, however, did not perform that well. Alright, this is Sword Art Online Variant Showdown. And this, apparently, based on the community votes, was the worst voted game. Alright, I'm gonna show you guys the results later, but my god. Surprisingly, nobody likes Sword Art Online Variant Showdown, which I am, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. The game was a little bit buggy as well, and also sometimes anime IP is just, it doesn't work all the time. This is the only game on this list which I did not record a video and make a video of. I did play it for about a couple of days, but yeah, I just didn't enjoy it as much. The experience was a bit lacking, and whatever that the game can provide, I feel that Tower of Fantasy can do better. Now the next one on the list, Eminence in Shadow, also another anime IP gacha game. You guys are familiar with this title for sure, I did cover it. The game was basically pretty fun. It's very similar to Princess Connect from Crunchyroll as well. Unfortunately, I didn't like the direction of the game. It started going to a pay-to-win event structure where you can basically have access to more items or more materials in the shop as a paying player. I thought that was a little bit weird. Why not just design a battle pass system whatsoever? But Eminence in Shadow is also something that I do think that they are going to try to capitalize on the traction because the anime is, just recently released. I do think this game is going to continue to shine throughout the beginning of 2023, maybe slowly start fading away in the end of 2023. Path to Nowhere. Now this game supposed to be a different, very unique genre altogether. It has a tower defense style system. I know a lot of players like to compare Path to Nowhere to Arknights, and yes, they are both tower defense style, but I do think that Path to Nowhere has its own charm. Has very good voice acting, very good story, everything of it screams high quality. There wasn't like a major drama regarding it as well when the game first came out, other than at the beginning it has a maintenance that lasted for more than 24 hours. My only complaints with the game, or very small gripe, is when you obtain a character, it takes forever to make them usable. It takes weeks if not months of grinding. It just takes very long, so the grind, the progression is going to be something that is very long. Fortunately, the game does have very good quality of life to be able to back that up. Now the next one is going to be Neural Cloud. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this title. Very good GB, very high quality GB. Nonetheless, I love how the game is extremely smooth. The game basically has zero loading time. It's very optimized for even the low-end devices. Highly recommended if you guys are looking for something that's like not high requirement. And the last one, I'm sure you guys are aware of this title now, NIKKE, Goddess of Victory. Now, surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, but this game, there's a reason why it's earning millions. Now, again, this is very controversial. Some of you guys might not like the style. Some of you guys might not like the combat system of this game. And some people say NIKKE almost has zero combat system. I disagree. I do think that the bosses in this game is one of the best one. Something that you can't find in any other games. But if you're playing at the highest end, for example like the interception, that's where it gets really fun. Trying out different strategies for me, like for example trying shotgun teams or rocket launcher teams. Even has PvP, which I do appreciate for sure. That in itself creates a totally new meta where some characters like Noise is just straight up broken right there. So yeah, NIKKE definitely one of the better ones. High quality, very good voice acting. The story are all voice acted as well. And in terms of the budget and production quality, NIKKE definitely has it hands down. So the community votes are as follows. If you guys did not attend the stream, here are the list of the votes. So Disney Twisted Wonderland, 75% voted bad. My Hero Ultra Impact, 58% voted bad. 7 Mortal Sins Ecstasy, 51% of the community voted bad. This one was a very close one, 49% voted good. Soul Tide, surprisingly, 58% voted this game as a above average, which is very good. Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, 78% voted bad. Dislight, 66% voted bad. Argent Twilight, 58% voted bad. Echoes of Mana, 52% voted bad, again very close. Artery Gear, 70% voted good. The poll results shows that players really enjoyed this particular title. Alice Fiction, you can see 56% voted good. Octopath Traveler, we have 51% voted good. Very close again, 49% voted bad right there. Greenlight, 51% voted bad. You can see it's the opposite of Octopath, surprisingly, sadly, right? CounterSide Global was the highest voted in terms of the votes. Alright, so maybe because I'm a CounterSide content creator as well, which creates a little bit of the players that play that game. So for sure, a little bit of bias right there for some of you guys. Memento Mori, 51% voted good. And then we have Tower Fantasy, which 58% voted good. Sword Art Online versus 90% voted this game as a bad game, as a below 5 out of 10. So by community votes, Sword Art Online Versus is actually the worst game of 2022. And then we have Eminence in Shadow, 63% voted bad. Path to Nowhere, 78% voted good. Neural Cloud, 72% voted good. And lastly, NIKKE, 80% voted good. Now, as for the awards, this is all voted by the community. As you can see, for Best Combat, surprisingly, NIKKE took home the victory. 36% voted for NIKKE to have the best combat, followed by Tower of Fantasy, followed by CounterSide. Alright, Best GB, Neural Cloud won hands down, 62%, not even a competition. Artery Gear at 30%, Grimlight at 9%. Best Graphics, NIKKE 59%, CounterSide at 28%, Memento Mori 8%, and Alice Fiction at 2%. So graphics, NIKKE hands down. Again, NIKKE is carrying home the victory. Now, Best Drama. This is a little bit more nuanced to this, but most of you guys voted 42% for Tower of Fantasy, surprisingly. And then NIKKE at 40%. CounterSide Hololive Drama was good, but not juicy enough. So I'm guessing 13%. And Neural Cloud at 3%. Now, Best Asset. Obviously, this one we didn't even need to do any votes. NIKKE is going to win hands down. Best Gacha. Surprisingly, CounterSide won this one, 46%. The argument here that most players used in the stream chat was CounterSide has a generous, you only need to pull for one particular copy for a character, whereas NIKKE requires multiple dupes. Fair enough. And then you can see Neural Cloud at 15%. So Best Story, surprisingly, players voted for NIKKE. while CounterSide is at the close second place, 40% versus 38%, PTN 16%, and Octopath at 4%. Best kid-friendly game, majority seems to be voting for My Hero Academia at 58%. So family-friendly game for sure. Based on the list above, you can see these are the listed ones, but also I did one extra poll at the end. And the winner for the best gacha game for 2022, voted by the community, is NIKKE at 50% out of 200 votes, and then followed by CounterSide at 37%. Last but not least, Neural Cloud at 12%. So these are the top 3 games of 2022 by the community, which I thought was pretty interesting. So yeah, overall, thanks to everyone who attended the live stream. If you guys aren't there, or if you guys couldn't make it, I'll have the link to the live stream in the description below. And also, if you guys are looking to check out any of the title that I mentioned in this particular video, feel free to check out. Everything will be in the description of this particular video. Now again, thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.